So, when you hear drug war, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably, speedboats, maybe some secret airstrips in the jungle, right? But what if I told you a much more sophisticated battle is being waged just beneath the waves? We're talking about narco submarines. And these aren't just boats, they're the absolute pinnacle of a hidden, high stakes tech arms race.
Okay, so picture this. You're on a routine patrol flight, way out in international waters over the Pacific, just endless blue for miles. Suddenly, the crew spots something weird. It's not a boat, definitely not a whale. It's just this faint outline of a vessel moving silently right below the surface. Instantly, they're on the radio to the Coast Guard. And just like that, the hunt is on.
Minutes later, Coast Guard boats are swarming the area. But the stealth on these things it's incredible. The crew inside this ghost ship, they have no idea they've been caught. Not until armed officers are literally standing on their roof, forcing the hatch open. I mean, talk about a tense, dramatic moment. It perfectly captures this underwater cat and mouse game. So what do they find inside? 3,000 kilograms of cocaine. That's over 6,600 pounds. This is not a small-time operation, right? This one single, nearly invisible vessel was hauling a fortune in drugs, all the way from South America straight for the US. The scale of it is it's staggering. Okay, so you have to wonder, how did we even get here? I mean, drug cartels building their own private navies? It's wild. But these subs, they didn't just pop up out of nowhere. They're actually the result of decades of pressure. A kind of brilliant but totally sinister engineering solution after law enforcement shut down pretty much every other way they had to smuggle. If you look back, it's a clear progression. Back in the 60s, it was simple, right? Just hide drugs in a suitcase. But then, security got better. So, by the 80s, the cartels had their own little air forces of Cessna jets using secret airstrips. Then radar improved, so in the 90s, they switched to those super-fast, go-fast boats. But every single time, law enforcement caught up and adapted. The cartels were basically cornered. They had to go under the radar. And I mean that literally. And all that pressure, well, it gave birth to their ultimate solution, the Narco Submarine. A vessel built for one single purpose: to move insane amounts of drugs across thousands of miles of open ocean, completely undetected. And the design is just genius, you have to admit. They're usually made of fiberglass, which most radar systems just filter out as, background noise. They ride so low in the water that all you can see is this tiny little cockpit and an exhaust pipe, and even that is often painted blue to blend in. And get this, a speedboat might carry a few hundred kilos. These things, they can haul up to 10 tons. It was a total technological checkmate. And here is the absolute kicker: 16 years. For 16 years, these ghost subs operated with almost zero interference. They started showing up in the early 90s, but the first one wasn't actually caught at sea until 2006. Think about that. For over a decade and a half, the authorities knew drugs were pouring in. They just had no idea how. Now, you're probably picturing just one kind of submarine, right? But the reality is way more complex. The cartels have basically developed a whole fleet of different models, and each one is designed for a very specific type of mission. It's a legit underwater arsenal. So first up, you've got the workhorse of the fleet, the low-profile vessel, or LPV. This is the one you see most often. Now, technically, it's a semi-submersible. That just means most of it is underwater, but it can't fully dive. These are perfect for those shorter but really high-traffic routes from Colombia up to Central America. Then you have the long-range model, the transatlantic semi-sub. This one is bigger, it's more modern, and it's built for these epic journeys, like from Brazil all the way to Europe. It holds over 20,000 liters of fuel, enough to cross an entire ocean, navigating with just a compass. Insane. Okay, now this is where it gets really serious. The snorkel sub. This is a true, fully submersible submarine. It's got ballast tanks so it can dive completely under the waves with just a tiny little snorkel pipe sticking out for air. And here's the crazy part. To this day, not a single one has ever been captured at sea. They are true ghosts of the ocean. And finally, the apex predator of the fleet, the unmanned electric submarine. This thing is powered by batteries, which makes it virtually silent. It's a ghost to sonar. The idea is that a bigger mothership tows it most of the way and then releases it to run that final, most dangerous part of the trip all by itself. So that leads to a pretty obvious question, right? If these electric subs are so stealthy that not one has ever been caught in action, how do we even know they exist? Well, the answer comes from intelligence. When law enforcement raids these secret jungle shipyards where they're built, they find stuff. They haven't caught the sub in the water, but they found detailed blueprints and even models. And that's how we know just how scary advanced this hidden tech has become. So let's just recap the fleet. You've got your common LPV for the short hauls, the long-range transatlantic for crossing the ocean, the totally invisible snorkel sub that's never been caught, and the futuristic unmanned electric sub. An entire fleet, and every single one has a specific job. All right, let's switch gears and talk logistics. Where are they even building these things? And maybe more importantly, how is this possibly cost-effective? Well, the answers are hidden deep in the jungle and in some really, truly mind-boggling economics. So to build just one of these subs in a hidden shipyard deep in the jungle, we're talking about a cost of up to $2 million. That is a huge investment for one piece of equipment. But here's the thing. That $2 million sub can carry a cargo of cocaine worth, on the street, up to $400 million. Suddenly, the math makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? With that kind of profit margin, the submarine itself is totally disposable. It's basically a one-time use delivery drone. And because they're disposable, the crew has one primary tactic if they think they're about to get caught: scuttle it. They just open up the sea valves, flood the whole thing, and send the entire $2 million sub and, of course, all the evidence straight to the bottom of the ocean. And for years, this was a perfect legal loophole. Before 2008, if a crew sank their own boat, they'd just be treated as shipwreck victims. You rescue them and that's it. No sub, no drugs, means no evidence, means no crime. But that all changed when a new law finally passed that made it a crime just to operate one of these stateless submersibles. And that finally gave prosecutors the leverage they needed, even if the proof was at the bottom of the sea. So, okay, even with new laws and more boats being caught, is this actually a winnable war? To really understand what the future holds, you have to look at the people, the masterminds who are actually building these machines. Meet Oscar Moreno Ricardo. They called him the king of Narco Submarines. Now, he wasn't your typical cartel boss. He was their chief engineer, a master builder who designed and built these incredible things. So when he was captured in 2022, it was a massive victory. It was a direct hit on the brains of the whole operation. But, even as the authorities celebrate a huge win like getting Ricardo, experts are always quick to say, look, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because for every master builder they managed to catch, there's probably another one already innovating in some hidden workshop deep in the jungle. And that leaves us with one last kind of unsettling question. We already know that unmanned, silent, electric drone subs are being designed in those jungle labs. So as long as the demand for drugs is there, this multi-billion-dollar industry is just going to keep pushing the boundaries of technology. So the real question isn't if they'll stop, it's what on earth are they going to invent next?